the more I ride this NC700, the more I appreciate it. Perhaps not the way somebody would appreciate a motorcycle, a rider's motorcycle, because this is not it. This is not a rider's motorcycle. And what I mean is that this bike doesn't really work very well as an exciting mode of transportation. It's not meant for that. In a time where all you have is very expensive bikes, very expensive, powerful bikes, Honda realized that we're just going to give you enough bike that you really need. And that's a problem. I think that's the reason this bike was not successful in the North American market, a market that sees more riders riding overly powerful motorcycles than any other place in the world. The interesting thing about this bike is that it is very popular outside of the United States. And if you talk to riders around here, you're not going to get any riders even knowing what this is. You know, it is one of these bikes that it's bland for Americans, but very good for riders in the rest of the world. And today, in this video, I'm going to explain to you why this bike is a brilliant bike. Of course, I'm riding a 2012 Honda NC700x DCT with ABS, and this bike is quite fantastic. Let me show you around. We all know that if you want a big ADV bike, or even a smaller like a Yamaha T7, and for me, I always buy bikes that are used. A lot of bikes in the used market are overly expensive. You know, I've looked at the Honda Africa Twin because I have a 95 Africa Twin and I wanted to get the new one. But unfortunately, it's become very popular and riders don't really sell those bikes. And one of the things that you're going to be finding is that there's bikes that are unpopular for very little reason, and this is one of them. Other bikes, Super Tenreys, Honda CB500s, they really make very good used bikes. But the NC, it's just an odd bike because it's a commuter bike. It's a standard bike, and of course nowadays nobody really makes standard bikes. All they do is make ADV bikes. But this thing is really a commuter. This is a standard bike that looks like an ADV bike. It's not pretending too much to be an ADV bike. It's got 17-inch wheels, so it handles curves really well. It doesn't have a lot of power. Why is this guy driving in the middle of the road? The bike just gives you enough with not any of the excess lard that you would see on a different bike. Now, I love riding the Super Tenrey. That bike does everything for me, and it has a shaft drive, which is one of the things I really appreciate. This one, of course, is a chain drive. You know, there's a bike by BMW. It's called the F650 CS. I believe that's the name, and that's a very similar bike to this, mainly because of the front trunk. This one, of course, has got a huge trunk. The gas tank is not here. It's in the back, under the seat. The BMW also has that, except the BMW, I think, is a little bit better as far as uniqueness because they have a belt drive to it, and the accessories that you would get for the BMW, you could actually get speakers that hook up to the bike, and it's got like accessories like tank bags that are built into this. Really kind of a fantastic concept. Of course, the NC stands for new concept, but Honda kind of cheapened out a little bit. Then I do realize I'm trying to save money, but I believe that this bike should have had a belt drive, and not even a shaft drive. Look, it's just a nice belt drive because it's a new concept. Because I think a lot of the riders that get this thing, I think they're not really into the sport part. They don't mind losing a little bit of power with the belt drive. But the chains are great. There's nothing wrong with chain drives. It's just, if you're going to build a new concept, go all the way. A lot of riders that do get this bike are riders that are beginners or coming back into the market after a long hiatus. This bike, it really is brilliant the way it rides, but I think for me it's the fuel efficiency. This bike is incredibly fuel efficient. You know, I keep talking to like CB500 owners how they're fuel efficient. This one is way more fuel efficient. It's the way the motor is. I don't know exactly, but apparently it's like a similar engine to the Honda Fit, except with 2 cylinders, and it gets 60 miles to the gallon. That might not seem like much, but riders realistically get 80 and 90, and you can ride this thing so conservatively and just save a ton of gas. So this bike does have that going for it. It's very fuel efficient. I think there is a demand for bikes that are easy to service. You know, BMW has got this gimmick that they like to make their bikes so you constantly have to take it into the dealer. Just look at the dealers in a BMW. They spend a lot of money on those dealerships. Couches, cafe machines, TVs. But in a Honda dealership, you don't get any of that, because a lot of these bikes don't need to be serviced all that much. But when it comes to service, this bike is probably one of the easiest bikes I've seen to service. You know, like the shim thing, the valves are so easy to adjust. You don't have to remove anything. You just push the radiator out the way and you got the access to the front of the engine. Another downside of this is, like, I kind of feel like if you're going to appeal to the ADV market like Honda does with this, with the styling, and it's a little bit of a taller bike, you really should have a 19-inch front wheel. If this thing was a 19-inch front wheel, it would be a lot better to ride it on gravel roads. But that's the thing, Honda is not interested in giving you any extra stuff. They're just giving you enough, which in a way I kind of admire about them. I'm gonna go right in here. Look at that, full gas. Yeah. Oh, I keep going for that shifter. You know, like, I do like the manual version, but this one's a little heavier. It's got ABS. It's a little bit wider at the engine. I kind of find that when I put my feet on the ground, my lower leg rubs the engine casing. No big deal. It's you know, also another really good thing about this bike is that it carries its weight very down low, and that's something that we do not appreciate enough about motorcycles. You know, I'm not surprised that this bike is not popular in the United States, because in the United States people like more recreational vehicles. I don't know if you guys noticed, but it's I don't know, 40 degrees out, and there's no riders out. You know, sometimes you see them on the weekends, but all of these guys screaming on top of their lungs, bike life, bike life, they're not to be seen anymore. And when you have that sort of culture, you're not going to get a bike that's meant for everyday riding, which this is a bike for everyday riders. And I find that, you know, almost like poetic. It's a bike to be ridden. It gives you exactly what bikes used to be in the past, like these very affordable, very efficient bikes. And somewhere along the way, we kind of started building these massive, heavy bikes that are hard to push around in the garage. You know, I weigh 160 pounds, and pushing my Super Tenere in the garage is a little bit difficult. I know that I just probably should, you know, I've ridden quite a bit, and the reason I complain about weight is that I have dropped bikes, and I've dropped bikes off-road, on the road. When you drop a bike like a Super Tenere and you go to pick it up, that is a struggle, especially if the bike is on a lean, and that's one of the type of falls that you're going to have on a motorcycle, is that you're going to drop it with the tank facing down, and it's going to be difficult to pick it up. This bike, if you drop it on an incline, because the weight is just much further down, it's easier to get it up. Also, the beauty of this bike in particular is the ease of riding at low speeds. You know, like the DCT, look at that. I mean, I can come to a stop, one hand, just turn around. Very easy to kind of get around. Yeah, very easy bike to ride. I did take out a lot of the stuff that the previous owner put in, but you see that engine, in a way it's a little bit of a downside for riders that like to ride bikes, but I kind of find the bike very attractive from the outside. Very easy. This is kind of interesting. I've always come here once in a while. It's a, put it in drive. It's a airport in the middle of the countryside, but it's a very low flying aircraft, but I don't see a lot of them. See, do not enter. Kind of would like to enter. Stop, airstrip ahead, watch for landing aircraft, active runway. Oh, thanks. Look at that, he's like pointing out the grass clippings. Thanks, buddy. That's pretty nice. But I do find this bike, the seat is just big enough for me at the 160 pounds. There's not a lot of space to kind of slide up and down the seat. That might be an issue if you're a fat bastard. But I find that I don't have that unless I start eating a lot of McDonald's. But for example, when you ride the what is over there? Oh, this is a little park. When you ride the Super Tenere or any large bike, the seats are much bigger, because I think the people that tend to get those are a little bit larger humans. Look at these guys, they just hit. They're cleaning up the road. Like, that SUV is completely busted up. I wonder what happened. Yeah, there's like pieces all over the road. Man, that's crazy. Holy shit. Man, that is crazy. Man, I think they hit the pole. It doesn't seem like there's another vehicle. Yeah, I think they just hit that pole. But man, and that looks like a brand new car. No, that is very unfortunate. You talk to motorcyclists, they're like, no man, I don't want an automatic DCT, I'm a man. And they frown upon like scooters, they frown upon all sorts of things that are cool, like ABS, fuel injection. Oh, grass clippings. Somebody's cutting the grass in the winter. Yeah, like people just frown upon all of these things that are great to have. Okay, you should have just gone, man. Now you're like in the middle of the roadway. That's just silly. But I find that mountain bikers are kind of like the same way. When they see the electric mountain bike, they don't see the benefit of it, because it's not so much about riding it. Kind of like what you do a mountain bike, you basically get a little bit more, so you can ride it more like a dirt bike. I think around town this bike really shines. It's so easy to ride slow and just kind of drink your coffee. Yeah, I probably don't suggest that. This is some historic thing here, but very easy to ride. I think I really enjoy riding this thing, probably in the city, even though I haven't ridden in the city with it. Coming to a stop, nothing. You don't need anything. It just shifts to the appropriate gear. And I haven't even left the drive mode, which is like really econ mode. Sport mode keeps the, see, I have to keep trying to want to shift because I'm so used to it. 128 miles in 30-degree weather on a motorcycle is a little bit, it's a lot. I know a lot of riders will ride longer. On the Super Tenere, 100 something miles is no big deal even in the winter because the wind protection is so much better. But if you ride something like this, you get cold much more. To a stop, like without even like holding onto your handlebars and then just twisting and going, and it takes off fairly fast. And it's weird how it senses what gear you want to be based on the amount of throttle that you give it. My lord, here comes the motorcycle. Look at this fancy lad. What is that, a BMW? Yeah, fancy lad in a BMW. Alright, Squids, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye! I'm kinda stuck here. The cops won't bother me.